Hi, I'm Chris Steyerwalt, and this is Power Play. So did you know that Jeb Bush is a Christian, like a capital C, dropping J-bombs, real, live, actual Christian? It's true. And the New York Times went and found him at Mass and described the condition of his shirt and the way that he held hands with other people. It was almost as if they were visiting a foreign planet to see how these unusual people go about their business. Being Christian is really important as it relates to getting the Republican nomination, and in a country that's 75% Christian, or say they are, that getting elected president has something to do with that. So what about the evangelical vote? And what about the battle for the hearts, not just the minds of the Republican base, but the hearts of the Republican base? People who know about that include Pete Snyder. He is the CEO of Disruptor Capital, and he is a Fox News Channel contributor. And Stephen Cobb is a Democratic strategist. He used to be the lawyer for the Democratic Party of Virginia. Okay, guys, here's the question. And I want to start with you, Pete. It's your team. So the way George W. Bush got elected president was that he looked at a Republican base that looked at him and said, I hate your dad. And he said, okay, but did you know that I took a walk with Billy Graham and gave my life to Christ, and I am an evangelical, born-again Christian, unafraid to say that, and he, through that, won the trust of evangelical voters, and that left these more libertarian conservative folks out here unable to block him. Can Jeb Bush do something like that?
He hopes he can. And I think any nominee or anyone who's hoping to be our nominee has to win that bracket. Mm-hmm. They have to do well with evangelicals. If we're going to have a Republican in the White House in 2016, we must bring out millions more evangelicals, folks who stayed at home because they weren't inspired about John McCain and Mitt Romney. Mm-hmm. We need to bring them back out, and I think we will.
Now, evangelical voter, now the migration of, whether you call them born again, they've gone by many names over the years, but people who are orthodox or serious about their faith kind of Christians have migrated increasingly to the Republican Party. And that has changed the complexion of the Republican Party. Scott Walker has a resume and a biography that these folks ought to like very much. He's a PK. He's the son of a preacher. He goes to an evangelical church. Is that something that is going to make it possible for him to keep the base united?
Well, as a PK myself.
Oh, okay, all right.
Drop that one.
My sympathies. Okay, all right.
I can relate to that. But there's going to be a lot of people searching for that mantle. Mike Huckabee, himself a pastor, is going to be talking to those voters a great deal, assuming he is in the race and pushing forward.
Oh, he's in there.
If Rick Santorum throws his hat back in and he gets in, I think the question isn't whether or not some of these candidates are going to be able to relate to the evangelical voters. It's going to be whether or not the evangelical voters coalesce around one individual candidate. I think many of these candidates will have compelling stories and ways to reach out to these voters. But the question, again, is who's going to bring all those voters together under one banner?
And Pete, the challenge, so as we've talked about many times, Internet, we've talked about this many times, the Republican Party's establishment wing has won every presidential primary except for two since the end of World War II, 1964 and 1980. It's very difficult to do. It's very difficult for the Republican base to win. The only way they win, and you make this point, they've got to be united, right? The base has to be united. And what's your outlook for the unity of the base?
Well, Chris, I think back in the day, if this were March Madness, you had two brackets, right? You had the establishment bracket and you had the base bracket, or the evangelical bracket. Totally different party in 2015, 2016. Right. You have a number of different brackets. You're going to have the Tea Party bracket. You're going to have the evangelical bracket. You're going to have the moderate bracket. You're going to have a couple more in there. Going in for the evangelical bracket, I think it's going to be a big battle between Mike Huckabee, who's probably the #1 seed there, and then a strong #2 in Ted Cruz.
I agree. I think Ted Cruz will do very well with evangelical voters.
I think Jeb Bush hopes that's exactly the case. I think he wants that. He wants to be good enough for many of the evangelicals, maybe their second, third, fourth choice, to be liked enough. But I think he'd be fine if that vote was split amongst 3 or 4 others.
Acceptability. It so often comes down to electability and acceptability. You guys are more than acceptable, and I think you more than electable. Thank you.
That might have been a compliment.
It's in there. If you dig for it, it's in there, guys. We thank you for making time for us, and you we thank you so much for making time for us, Internet. We hope you have a great day, and we hope you stop back for some more Power Play real soon.